Look at God brightening up the whole sky. Oh, there he is again. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, God talks with the good doc. The good doc only wants to talk about God. Like, comment, share, so that someone you care about can be educated on what we're going to discuss. What are we going to discuss? Liability with a waiver. This video is only for educational purposes. This is not legal, financial, or taxation advice. I am not an accountant. I've been trained by dentists who run businesses, successful businesses, and I'm self-taught. That's my credentials for this. I advise you speak with a licensed accountant or research what I'm saying yourself. All right, let's get started. Okay, brief overview. There are 3 different ways to structure your business. I'm going to talk to you like you know what each one is. First, you and the business are one entity. That is called a sole proprietorship. Number 2, you and the business are separate from a business perspective, but the same from a taxation perspective. That is called an LLC. Option 3, you and your business are completely separate, and that is called a corporation. 2 types of corporations, an S-Corp and a C-Corp. Misconception, an S-Corp is not a business structure. It is just a taxation designation. Taxation designation. It means nothing more than that. When you are setting up a business, you set it up as either an LLC or a C-Corp, and you file for S-Corp taxation status. That's Form 2553. Gotta love God in the background. I'm sorry. We gotta take a minute. Can we take a minute to give God some praise? Bow your head. Praise God, brother man. Praise God, brother man. All right, so let's get back to it. You file for an S-Corp taxation status. What does that mean? It means that you are taxed as a small corporation. S-Corp literally stands for small corporation. Again, gonna talk to you like you know what these things mean. We're gonna skip over C-Corp. We're gonna skip over sole proprietorship. Those are covered in separate videos. Today, we just wanna focus on the comparison of LLC versus S-Corp. You have to look at yourself and the business and your relationship between the two. In an LLC, your relationship to the business is that you are the owner. That means that the member who is responsible for the business is the owner. As the owner, you cannot be an employee. What does that mean? That means that all money that passes through this LLC goes straight to you as a distribution. That full distribution is subject to income tax, ranges from 0 to 5%, and employment tax, which is about 15%. S-Corp taxation status, you and the business are 2 separate entities. You do not own the business. That's the distinction. You, as the member who controls the business, are just an employee of the business. What do I mean? LLC, you are the owner. S-Corp, you are an employee who happens to own the business. Simplest way I can differentiate. So with that, let's go back to those 2 taxes I told you about: income tax, employment tax. Okay. When you are the owner, you're getting all of the distribution, all of the revenue from the business. So the whole thing is subject to tax. When you are the employee who happens to own the business, you can pay yourself a salary, which is subject to income and employment tax, but you can also pay yourself, God on the other side, you can also pay yourself a distribution, okay, which is not subject to employment tax. It is only subject to income tax. Example, let's say business A is an LLC, business B, A, B, C, D, is S-Corp as far as taxation status, taxation designation. Let's say both businesses made $400,000. The business where I'm the owner, the LLC, where I cannot be an employee, I received $400,000. Let's say that's the profit after we paid everybody. After we get rid of the overhead, after we pay all the bills, we made $400,000. $400,000 passes to me. All $400,000 of that is subject to the income and employment tax. I paid $60,000, 15 times 4, $60,000 in employment tax. Now, let's take that same profit, okay, after we pay everybody, after all the bills are paid, we're an S-Corp now. I'm an employee who happens to own the business. I pay myself a reasonable wage. Again, I will go over every separate video outlining what each individual business structure is. But in an S-Corp, in a corporation period, you can pay yourself what's termed a reasonable wage, and then you can receive a distribution on top of that. So we made $400,000. If I hire someone off the street, I could pay them $100,000 as a reasonable salary. So I pay myself as the employee off the street $100,000 to do the job. That's my salary. 15% of that, 15,000, goes to pay the employment tax to the IRS. 300 grand that I could give myself as a distribution, that is not subject to employment tax, only income tax. If 15,000 comes out of 100, 45,000 comes out of 300. I just saved $45,000. Let me repeat that. If 15,000 comes out of 100,000, 45,000 would come out of 300,000. I just saved myself $45,000 by filing as an S corporation versus as an LLC. We will go over the drawbacks, but the biggest one is that you have to do the paperwork, or you have to have an accountant do it for you. From my experience, it's not a lot of paperwork. It's really not, and it's not that hard to me. But you speak to someone else, they'll tell you it's hard. It just depends on how much work you want to put in. If you don't want to put the money in, the time in, because time is money. Use those interchangeably. If you don't want to put the money or time in, you can't file as an S-Corp. You got to put one of the two in. You either got to put money in or time in, which translates to the same thing. It's easier to file as an LLC. If you're comfortable losing that 15%, just pay that 15%. Managing an LLC is simpler. There's less paperwork to keep track of. But that's the biggest differentiator as far as the management of the two. You can be an LLC and file for S corporation taxation designation. You can be a C corporation and file for S corp taxation designation. You can be either one. Difference is, do you want to do the paperwork, or do you want to pay somebody to do the paperwork? If you want to pay an accountant, they say you end up spending about $1,000 to $2,000 a year. If you're not making more than 10,000, which that would be 10%, you would be making 5% off of that employment tax. Use the employment tax as a barometer. If that's not less than you would be saving, then it's not worth it to have an accountant do it, but it is worth it to learn how to do it yourself. That's pretty much that. That's the comparison of the LLC versus the S-Corp. If you stay tuned, I will release videos on what a sole proprietorship is, on what an LLC is, on what an S-Corp is, and what a C-Corp is, and how you know which one you should file for. Until then, you stay blessed by the best, my people. Brother man, praise God, brother man.